here, and as we kick off our social theory broadcast, we have for today's episode some really incredible guests. Before I introduce them to you, let me introduce myself. I am Thomas C. Hanna. I'm the founder of BlogPhoto.tv. And I'm super excited to be here with you today. Do want to give a shout out to our sponsors for this. I'll mention them again later, but those of you who know me know that I am addicted to caffeine and coffee, and today we are brought to you by Barney's Coffee Kitchen, who now provides me with coffee in order to help mention them, but the funny thing is I was drinking them before I ever even realized that they were located here in Florida, and we built that relationship. So I'll mention them again later, but I want to jump on over to some of the awesome people that we have on here today as we talk about design. We have Andrea Beltrami. Did I say it right, or did I butcher it again, Andrea?
You still butchered it, but it's all good. I answered whatever. I'll let you off the hook this time. 100th time.
and we have Dustin W. Stout here as well. So let me let you both say hi.
Hello. What's up? What's up? What's up?
Yo-yo. I wish I had a yo-yo to actually accompany that. Yo-yo.
Yo. What's up, yo?
That's my new Do the Dustin for this show. It's the hello.
Yeah. All right. So Dustin, you're sporting the new beard, and you apparently got a head start on No Shave November. Are you tying that in with a I know you were talking to me earlier about growing that all out for November and then doing something special with that. Are you tying that in with a promotion, or are you just?
No, you know, last year I didn't really participate in No Shave November. I can't remember why. I think it was because I had it was either some sort of speaking engagement or some sort of a photo shoot that I just couldn't do it. So I figured this year I better go big or go home. And every now and then, anyways, I like to just mix up my look just because it's fun, and I get bored really easily. So I decided to not cut my hair for a while, and I just started growing my beard, I think a month and a half ago or so. And I just figured, I'm going to do No Shave November this year. I'm going to make it really drastic at the end, maybe raise some awareness for what the month is actually about men's health. And so yeah, go big or go home. And I'm already home, so I can't exactly go back home, so I have to go big, in my opinion.
And you still have the red shirt, so if you go big, we still know who you are.
Right. Yeah. People still recognize me, and you know, it's a look change, so to speak, but with the visibility and recognizability.
Andrea said that she was going to join in on No Shave November. Isn't that right, Andrea?
I was going to say, I'm here to represent the ladies who want to jump in on this movement. So just saying, like, I know it's about men's health, but we're ready to support you guys too. We're ready to take one for the team.
We'll take whatever support we can.
There you go. Done. Check.
All right, so we have Andrea with No Shave November as well. Awesome. All right, well, today I'm excited about our topic. We are going to be discussing design and why that's important, and what you can probably tackle on your own and what you probably shouldn't tackle on your own. But let's dive in with this. Andrea, we'll start with you. Why is design important to business in general?
Well, there's a ton of reasons, but two of the top ones are probably that, A, it's going to help you stand out, right? Creating a signature style and nailing it in the way that you, design your look and feel is huge. That is your identity out on the internet. You know, that's your visual identity. That's what people are going to see and incorporate with you right away, immediately, before they hear the voice and dive into your content and all that stuff. And two, it makes you look like you should be taken seriously. I mean, the whole, wonky clip art crapola of the 90s is not going to cut it anymore. You have to buy into it, and it needs to look good, right? So it steps you up. It's like if everything looks really good, it has that professional bow on it, basically, and you're going to be able to gain a lot more traction and get a lot more people to notice you and take you seriously because you earned it. We all know how hard it is. So it's a qualifier, so to speak. I mean, people can put you in those two buckets really easily.
So quality design helps in terms of your professionalism, helps in terms of standing out, and it helps in terms of creating a feel and sort of an identity. Is that what I hear you saying?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Dustin, what would you add to that?
I would just add that human beings, and I was recently talking about this exact same thing at a conference, and the idea behind the whole talk was human beings have evolved to a state to where we use all of our senses, all of our seeing, smelling, tasting, feeling, touching, any sense we can use to validate our environment and judge whether or not our environment is safe or good for us or credible or reliable or all of these things that our brains process at once. For the internet, you can't exactly taste a website, not that I've seen yet. You can't always hear it right away if it doesn't have one of those annoying auto-playing videos. You can't really touch a website because every website feels the same because it's just a screen. So really, when it comes to building a website, building trust and evoking that emotion and that psychological trust, really all we have to work with is visuals, whether it's reading or seeing. And human beings have a highly evolved sense of visual perception. And trust is a big factor. So when you walk into a department store and somebody walks up to you and they're in this old busted up 70s suits, kind of dusty, he's got some patches on it, you are much more skeptical as he walks up to you and presents himself or whatever he's about to say, rather than if a beautiful young woman who's very well dressed, put together, has her hair did all nicely, looks presentable, you are much has her No Shave November going on, nicely groomed. You're much more likely to trust that individual than the one that doesn't quite look healthy or trustworthy. So people love to buy things. They only buy things from people they know, love, and trust. Visual design is one way to present yourself, just like Andrea said, to be likable and trustable.
Okay, and now you've talked specifically about web design in this one, and design certainly goes much bigger than that. It's a lot of them. But since you brought up web design, let's talk about that for a moment, because when you're designing a website and you're thinking in terms of your visual design, there's the element that as you both have said, you want to look professional, you want to look solid, but there's also an aspect in terms of guiding the visitor into what you want them to do, where you want them to go, helping them be able to navigate so that the site that you are creating has a set purpose and it is directing people toward that. How does design tie into there, and what are some things that we can learn about design and the way that it interacts with guiding user behavior?
It's a great question. The talk I gave was actually on advertising, so it wasn't exactly about web design in general, more like just basic design principles that apply in any realm. And also part of that talk was a section about, I talked a little bit about attention span and focusing the users or the viewers' attention to where it really needs to be. The problem with a lot of websites is they have no concept of the attention ratio. So how much attention you're asking for in a given page. When you land on a website, how many points of attention are there on that page distracting from your ultimate goal? Most websites have a very limited amount of goals that they have. Take a typical blog, for example. We work with a lot of bloggers, and most bloggers, their primary goal is not to get people to read their blog. I mean, that's maybe the early stage blogger. Most professional bloggers, their ultimate goal is to get them on their email newsletter, to get them subscribed to the list, right? You know a little bit about lists, am I right? Drea knows a little bit about lists. So that is the goal of the page. So anything else on that website or on that page that is not leading towards the goal is effectively taking away from that goal. So when you're designing, whether it be an advertisement or a web page, a landing page, always start with the goal in mind. And that goal should be so blatantly obvious that someone like me, who's basically blind without their glasses, can take off their glasses, and the first thing they see on that page that sticks out should be that goal, or at least a call to action towards that goal, like a button or an input or a big bright arrow saying do this.
Gotcha. So you are talking about having a very specific singular goal, and you design all of the visual elements to ultimately reinforce that, and if not reinforce that, to at least not distract from that.
Exactly.
Now, Andrea, I'm going to come back over to you, because I know that you take the design that you build on your site in terms of directing things, and you actually kind of do some different stuff with it. You have you are very careful to integrate a lot of those design elements with everything else that goes on outside of this, but you kind of work through a different funnel, because a lot of your stuff, as I've noticed, is built towards these webinars that you put on, and then those webinars are ultimately geared towards either developing a list or building a client base. Do you focus your design differently in building toward the webinars that you put on than you would necessarily just blog posts that develop lists, or is there a lot of overlap between those, in your opinion?
Well, there's a lot of overlap in the way that it's consistency, right? So whether I'm doing slides for my mini course, I'm doing an image to promote it, or I'm doing the email to tell you about it, everything looks the same. I keep consistent things. Like every time you see my yellow, it's like, I want you to take action. That's where my buttons are, whether it's on my website, whether it's on my landing pages and all that sort of stuff. I also do things a little bit differently than a lot of the online marketers out there, and a lot of bloggers are trying to mimic the online marketers by creating these divisions between your real estate, right, your blog or website, and then these pages that we build and create and design to get folks to take action, right, whether that's on our, a sale or a subscriber or something like that. So that division a lot of times is much bigger than I think they intend for it to be, but it's because they deviate so far away. So what I do is I try to keep everything on my real estate, on my blog. So even when I'm promoting or doing a new mini course, I create that as a blog post. Why? Because I feel like people are coming to my real estate knowing that I provide value, that I'm there to answer their questions, that this is not a one-off page in some oblivion, some black hole on the internet. Everything's there for them. It's a lot of more of a warmer embrace, right? We all know when we land on a landing page or a sales page, and we immediately, whether you recognize it or not, kind of cringe. The skeptic glasses go on. We're just like, okay, is it worth it? We're more in like the bargain mentality and that sort of stuff. So again, there's so many different facets to the way that Dustin and me and other designers do things, because we're always working towards that singular goal of creating an experience. And we have the know-how on how to use design in all of its facets to get that end result done, to get that trust built, to get people to feel comfortable with us, to convey who we are, to convey how we can help them. And that's really the magic of design. It's not a singular one and done kind of thing. It has to go in every aspect of the biz.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like, and I'm going to tie this in. Sandra Lemming actually made a comment that I want to bring into this conversation, because it sounds like what I'm hearing from both of you is that design is very strategic. We often think of design just in terms of it being artistic, right? But it's not just artistic. It's this merger of strategy with artistry, and that's where things become really, where the skill set really becomes important as a designer, is that you're not just creating art, you're creating art that serves a purpose and is strategically sets about to accomplish a particular goal. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, and I think that's why a lot of DIYers get stuck, because they start focusing on making shit pretty, right? Just like, how do I make it look good? But that's the piece that they're missing, is the consistency and the strategy behind it. And it actually makes things easier, which people don't really believe. Get the clarity first, then get the design skills and make that happen, or hire someone. But without clarity and strategy, you can work on something to make it pretty for weeks and months. And what is that doing for you? Nothing. The two go hand in hand.
Okay.
Yeah, and I wanted to add just a little bit to this. In that same presentation, all this is going to come back because it's so fresh in my mind. One thing that I had the audience repeat multiple times throughout my presentation was that, and I'm going to pull up the exact quote here, before all else, where is it? Let me find it. I really love quoting myself. So, before all else, the purpose of good visual design is to effectively communicate a message. Before all else, the purpose of good visual design is to effectively communicate a message. Notice it's not the purpose of good design is to look good. The purpose of design is to be pretty. The purpose of design is to be attractive in any way. It's none of that. The purpose of design is to communicate a message in its simplest form. Any art form, a painting or a photography, all of that is trying to communicate a message. It's trying to tell a story. So whenever we speak with at Wheel Media to our clients about design, development, branding, even SEO and content marketing, everything starts with what's your story. And again, what's your story? You start with that, go to who's your audience, who are you trying to tell this story to, and then finally, what is the goal, or what are you trying to accomplish in the end of this story? And so all of that is design. I mean, all of that is marketing, right? Right. Everything is marketing, essentially, but the heart of design is just communicating that message in its most effective form.
Okay. Now, and the reason I bring this up, Sandra made this comment over here, and I'm going to bring it up, where she was just sharing that creativity is not her thing, and how that interacts with design. So my follow-up question to this discussion about strategy and artistry is, how important is creativity to design, and where does that fit in? Because certainly it has to be there. Where does that tie in with design?
Well, creativity has something to do with every aspect of business, right? I mean, you have to creatively figure out how to get your people over to your blog. You have to creatively think of ways to sell your product. So, you know, it sort of frustrates me when people say they're not creative, because like at the end of the day, then maybe you're not cut out for that. But the thing is, like, you know, writing's not my thing, but I have to learn it. So these are all new things to us. And creativity doesn't necessarily need to be learned. It needs to be harnessed. It needs to be found and fostered and tapped into. And there is everybody has creativity. It's what way you are most comfortable expressing it, and figuring out ways and doing exercises and learning how to focus it in a way that it will come out. And again, it comes, you know, to clarity in who you are, clarity in what your brand is. And that clarity, that's what I said earlier, it makes things easier, because it's going to very organically lead you the right way. And also, this is where, I mean, this is a discussion we're having, this is where you have to tap into expertise and professionals. Right. The best place to start is with them, because it's not necessarily that they have to do everything for you. A lot of solopreneurs want to be able to do it themselves. They want to say that they did it themselves. They want to have utter control over it, and that's great. More power to you. But consult and get a professional on board with you to help you set that foundation, because once you have that, like I said, it's going to organically build on it, and it's always an evolution. I know Dustin's still, you know, tweaking and honing his branding and creating his visual style and his purpose, and same with me and you. It's never an end process, but it does start with figuring out how to get the creativity to come out in the ways that you need it.
Right. So you're actually taking creativity and you're expanding it, and which I think this is such a critical point that you're making, Andrea, is that creativity is bigger than just art. It's bigger than colors.
Yeah.
It's bigger than,
Now, if I can say one thing, because
yes,
like Andrea, that strikes a big chord with me, and I wrote about this on my blog again and again and again, where when somebody says to me, I'm not creative, usually what they're saying is they're saying I'm not an artist of some sort, right? But to me, nobody in this world can honestly say they're uncreative. To me, saying I'm not creative is like saying I don't have a body. Creativity is a number of different muscles put together to form you and your personality, your brain. When she wrote that sentence, that's an what was her name? I'm so sorry.
Sandra.
When Sandra typed that message out, that was an act of creation. She created a sentence. And whatever profession you're in, my accountant that I go to, he would tell me that he is the least creative person I know, and I say, well, Sam, tell me this. What should I do with this, and this number of write-offs this year? And he'll go, oh, you should do this. I go, Sam, you just created for me a plan. You are insanely creative when it comes to numbers and accounting. So every single field, no matter who you are, you have creative muscles. Which muscles are bigger than others is a different story for every one of us. So to me, visual creativity is one set of muscles. It's like the deltoids. If I want to get better at visual creativity, I go exercise them deltoids. The accounting. That's the biceps. My accountant Sam, he's got much bigger biceps than I do. So to anyone who thinks they're not creative, that's not true. All you need to do is start to flex those different muscles in the areas you think you're not creative in. There are some points when you might want to just bring in a spotter, someone who's got those muscles a little bit bigger than yours, and say, handle this for me, and learn from them and understand it. But everybody's creative.
So if I understand, and I'm glad that you jumped in with that, because I know that you're big on promoting creativity. Your catchphrase on your site is where social media and creativity collide, right? So I know that's pretty central to you, and I like this idea that in every area that we have, there's creativity that we're employing in some fashion, and usually that ties in with some area of our expertise. And so bringing that back into this conversation about when should you hire a designer, when should you not, which we're about to dive into here in just a moment, when you're hiring a designer, you're not really hiring creativity per se. What you're hiring is somebody that has a specific set of expertise, that they have the experience in a particular area, that they have built up those muscles so that they can be put to work in a way where you may not necessarily have the time invested in that muscle set, which can free you to put your time in where it best serves you and where you can best manifest your own creativity. Would you agree with that, or how would you expand?
Yeah, I mean, I like to think of it as when you hire a consultant of any kind, you're usually hiring them to solve a problem. Mm-hmm. In the case of design, most people have a design problem. They have a problem in that they can't make it good, or it's broken, or it's not working. Their current design or their current branding is not professional and not attracting the right type of customers. So when you're hiring a designer, it's because you have a design problem. You have either a lack of or a need for new design, and so a designer comes in and they help you solve that problem, which is also the big issue with any sort of creative work in a number of different fields. People tend to want to say, well, I'll hire you, but I want you to do it first, and if it's good, I'll pay you. I shared a video the other day about the idea of spec work and how people treat creative professionals as differently than any other profession. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you walk into a diner and say, I want an omelet, but cook it first, and then if I like it, I'll pay for it. That doesn't fly. Creative professionals are just like any other professionals, and they're there to solve a problem, and their expertise is, they should get paid for.
Right, no, and I absolutely agree. Now, I do know though that both you and Andrea, and about to come back to you, Dre, um, spend a significant amount of your time investing in others and doing what you can in order to help others develop at least a very rudimentary skill set so that they can be able to make design choices that benefit them. And so, Dre, what are particular? Let's create this fictitious new solopreneur. Let's say that they're launching a new site. They're decent at blogging. They're decent at writing. And they are now wanting to prepare the initial stages for launching a new business. What are the areas that they really need to make sure they nail with design, and where they should probably, and what are the areas that they could probably tackle on their own and, kind of hit or miss?
Well, the first place, and this is where most solopreneurs don't go, and so many of the people that come to me ready to hire me are not ready to hire me, but they don't even realize that, because it does not start, this new solopreneur, do they have, so they like to write and they like to do this, that's great. Do they have the whole business lined out? Do they know who they want to target? Do they know what kind of products and services that they're going to offer? Do they know, not the 5-year plan or anything like that, but do they have an idea where they want to take the business and what they ultimately want to grow it and what it's going to look like? And, what feelings do they want to evoke, and who is it that they want to target? There's so much fundamental shit that needs full crystal clear clarity that you can't get there. You physically can't get there. All this like making things pretty happens because you don't have that clarity to know when you have it and when you don't. And that's where solopreneurs have to start. They have to start there. They have to have all these things. What visuals do is they take those and they translate them into visuals. They should still speak to the same emotion. They should still speak to the same end goal. They should speak to the person that you're trying to reach. And so it's all an extension of the brand attributes. So they need to start at the discovery phase, is what I call it, and move on to the inspiration phase. And again, collect things and get a sense, especially if you're not from the design side of things or the creative side of things, you have to get out there and see what's out there, see what your aesthetic style is. It's like anything else, right? We dress the way we dress, but we've evolved. We change our style, but that is what expresses us, right? We could all buy the same jeans, but we would wear them differently, we would accessorize them differently, we would wear a different fit, you know what I mean? That's what it really does. But it's cart before horse is the problem. And that's why people struggle for so long, because they don't have clarity, and all they're looking for is some combination of shit they think looks pretty. And that's not what it's about.
I like what Debbie actually said here, which I think ties exactly in with what you're saying. She said that her strength is words, and her designer is a great listener, that she's always blown away by what she comes up with for graphics.
Exactly. But that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and I think that's so critical, because and Dustin, I'd love to get your input on this, but I think one of the most important skill sets for hiring really anybody that works in some sort of a consultancy role is their ability to hear your message, their ability to listen, and their ability to then employ their skill sets in a way that reinforces what you have communicated to them. So the core thing is that somebody is able to listen and hear that and then bring their areas of expertise in onto that. What would you add to that, Dustin? What would you have to say about that?
It's a cool thing when I read something like that, because one of the questions I get asked all the time, every time I speak, it's usually to the effect of like, how do I better communicate to my designer what I want, or how do you bridge that gap of communication, because like I don't know how to say what I want in the right terms, and then when I tell them what they want, they don't give me what I want. Like I don't know how to convey it. And for me, there's twofold responsibilities. One, for the non-designer, for the business owner, the most important thing to do is to always clearly articulate your objectives. Always bring it back to goals and objectives. The designer should know who your audience is, should know who they're building the visual aspect for, but it's also their job to communicate why they made the choices they made. Design is just a series of choices, very highly informed stylistic choices. A font is not just picking a font because it looks good. It should be, I picked this font because at this size and at this number of characters and this width in this environment, it is the most optimal font. It invokes this type of emotion, this type of psychology behind it. I chose this color because based on your demographic, they relate better to this. They should be able to explain the design choices they made, not just because it looks good. So communication is huge. It's critical, and I love reading when somebody says, "Oh, my designer's such a great listener," because a lot of us designers, if we're honest, we tend to be introverts. I'm definitely the exception to the rule. I think Andrea is as well. I'm extremely extroverted, but most designers I know, they're really introverted, and they're not. They haven't honed their ability to communicate why they make the choices they make, and they really need to. But the responsibility lies on both sides. As a non-designer, you need to be able to communicate what your goals and expectations are, and you need to be open to the designer's expertise and allow them to explain that to you, why they made the choices they made.
Well, and to add right on top of that, that's what people need to keep in mind when they are looking for a designer and are looking to hire someone, because just like any other, niche or facet, or go back to corporate America, everybody has the different levels that there are, right? There's an executive assistant who can, type 200 words a minute and who makes 150 grand, and then there's an office assistant who does a lot of the same clerical work and gets, 15 bucks an hour. When you're going for a designer, there are people who physically know how to work Adobe products and can create you something, but they don't have the other side where they can offer you anything besides their physical skills of moving the mouse around. Then there's other designers, more like me and Dustin, that it's an experience. And when people walk away from my branding services, they don't walk away with like, I got my color palette. It's like they have so much clarity. They're like bursting out of themselves because they had no idea, because I didn't allow them to go to this place until we got the clarity. And so it's kind of like, I joke with some of them, like some of it's just like, I'm kind of a therapist and a counselor, and you kind of have to talk through it, but that really is the truth, because a lot of people don't know they're not ready. They think they're ready, and they're not. And that's truly what an all-encompassing branding design expert like Dustin and I comes to the table with, and that's why we charge more. Like, if you want some canned templated logo, there's a lot of people out there that can do it. You want someone to pull this shit that's inside of you, that's just in your soul waiting to come out, well, you need a different level. You need the next level.
And when I know that you guys go even beyond just that initial creation process, because I know that I know the type of services that you both offer. That Andrea, when you create things for someone, you don't just create, well, okay, here's a logo you can use. You say, well, here's a logo. Here's how it integrates with your overall brand thing. Here are some of the ways that you can be able to utilize it in terms of promotional materials, in terms of this, that, and the other thing, so that it creates a cohesive experience. And I know that, Dustin, when you put your stuff together, you actually include not just here are your design elements. You include a period of brand implementation that goes along with that, so that you can be able to work with your client as they're putting it into use and make sure that it actually works to accomplish those purposes.
Yeah, that actually comes from a bit of experience, understanding that I can't possibly know every single business or every single use case that that the brand identity is gonna pop up in, and it also comes from a bit of OCD, to be honest, because when we craft these brand identities or a website or anything that we've created, us creative people tend to be like, it's almost like our baby, right? So you don't just hand over your baby and say, hope you know how to use it, or hope you know how to take care of it. I have some nightmare stories of creating beautiful websites, and within a week of handing it over to the client, it's just a disaster because I didn't give them the tools to properly maintain it or help them understand how to use it. And so I'll offer 6 months or 6 weeks, depending on the project, of consultation. Pick up the phone if you're about to implement something new, you don't know how, give me a call. Or a lot of our websites, it's 6 months of maintenance, and I'll do all the changes and walk you through them, and we'll schedule time. Because I want to put this stuff on my portfolio, right? I want to showcase my babies, and I want to show off my clients, and carry that forth as something I can continue to be proud with. So if we're not effectively equipping the people who are using the solutions we've given them, then I think we're doing them a huge disservice.
And I like. And Kristen Drysdale had a great question for the both of you. She resonated with your discussion about creativity. She says everybody's creative and people should be paid for their expertise. What I think I'm hearing is that people should be prepared to appreciate time. Either time put in acquiring knowledge or applying it is valuable. And then she goes on to ask, where do you each draw the line between tips and tutelage? And I think that's a really important question. So how do you guys draw the line between that? I'll start with you, Dre, since I'm playing.
I don't know who's going to go first.
Ladies first.
Even if we're not shaving, I like this. You have to draw the line for yourself. I mean, I have the society, I have the community, so I pour a lot of my heart and soul into that. And here's the thing, I'll be totally honest, I'm a really good people reader, and I help those that are hungry and willing to do the work. I draw different lines for different clients. I mean, that's the bonus of being, a freelancer and owning your own business, is that, it depends on what the relationship is. It depends on what the project is. It depends who the person is. I mean, I go for solopreneurs because they're my heart and soul. Like, they're who I identify with. I know their struggle. I know what it's like. And so, I have a couple people that, I've given really good discounts on and mentored a lot longer than others, because they're hungry and they're doing the work and they're trying so hard. And so for me, it boils down to anything else, which is like relationships and how can I help them. But so I have different levels. I give as much as I can possibly give in the society, and it's like, if you're that person that's going to email me to ask for a link to something, then like go Google it yourself. So there are things that to me are just red flags, and I show the same courtesies that people show me. So that's how I do it. I really do it person by person.
Okay.
I tend to make it a little bit easier for myself. Basically, if it's on my blog, I point you there. And if it's going to take more than 5 minutes for me to explain, I give you a link to my calendar to book a time. Because it's, when you're visible, like all of us are on social media, you've got people coming to you all day long. Twitter direct messages, Facebook messages, private Google Plus posts, Hangouts, just emails. That contact form on my website, I've almost considered taking it down a number of times, because people are always wanting a piece of your time. And for me, I just made it really, really simple. If I can answer it in 5 minutes, I'll answer it in 5 minutes. If I've got an article I've already written, I will point them straight to that article. If I haven't written the article yet, and I think it'll be a good one, I'll say, that's a good question. I'll answer it in my next blog post.
And you've done that, and that's a fantastic way of developing content that is beneficial to your audience, is listening to those questions. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just really hard. Like Andrea said, you kind of have to take it on a case-by-case basis, but when you're in the consulting industry, for Wheel Media, we get this a lot. A lot of people coming to us, and they want us to meet with them, and they want to ask us about their project and kind of feel us out for what they think we can do to them. And we have to tiptoe a really fine line between when we're just meeting with a client to see if there's a right fit, and when we're actually giving them strategy and consulting. A lot of times they want to know, what will you do for us? And we have to really draw that line and say, okay, we'll tell you to an extent what we're going to do, but if you want us to go into details, you're going to have to pay us, because we can't give that away for free. We've got kids to feed. So
the most valuable thing, knowledge is the most valuable commodity out there, which is why you hire people. It's for their knowledge, yeah. So I want to bring this into the second part. Debbie brought up this really great point. She asked potential clients for two things: do they have a business plan, and do they have a budget? Because she can't work without both. And I think that applies to designers. Really applies to this concept of design as well. And one of the things that we have that are sometimes challenging when people are first starting up their own solopreneur business or small business or whatever is that budget is very limited. And so you have to make strategic decisions in terms of where do you invest time, where do you invest money. You have limited amounts of both, and how do you do that? So when we're dealing with design, there are a lot of areas where new business owners are going to have to take that on themselves. What are some areas that you think you're okay to cut corners with versus areas where, for the benefit of your business, you really need to make sure that you get it right out the gate and need to hire somebody for? Dustin, I'm going to start with you since we started with Dre last time. Where can you cut corners in starting a new business, and where do you really need to probably bite the bullet and hire a professional designer?
Well, I think the first place is imagery. Photography is expensive. Hiring a good photographer, they are worth their weight in gold. But many small businesses can't afford $1,200, $2,400 to bring out a photographer just to get some, general shots of an office space, or some, they don't want to spend, $1, $2, $5 per image for a blog post using iStock photography. So for us, we work a lot in the content marketing field, and so whenever we're hunting for images to use for content, blog posts, social media posts, we always recommend, one place you can absolutely cut costs is just finding free stock photography online. BlogPhoto.tv is one of the places we often send people to go find free stock photos.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah, you were actually, I don't know if I showed you the slide, but you were actually in that presentation that I spoke at last month. But that's one of the places. I mean, ultimately, if you're a business and you're a legitimate business and you have goals of actually turning a profit, I would say make sure that you first consult with a professional designer about brand identity, color, typography, logo, and then from there you can kind of work things out. If you have a little bit of an idea of how to use Canva or PicMonkey or one of the free design tools out there, you can probably get by with a lot of graphic design on your own because of templates and things of that nature. Just I would say absolutely do not cut costs on the brand part.
What about web design? When you're designing your website, is it beneficial to simply grab a template and go with that? Can you use, Johnny asked earlier, if you recommend something like Squarespace, or is that something where you really need to probably sit down with a designer that's skilled in marketing in order to be able to plan that out?
I would say if you don't have about $3,000 to spend on a website, on a great web designer developer, that's minimum what we take on projects for at Wheel Media for web design. If you don't have that, then absolutely give it a shot yourself. Squarespace is an excellent solution for most small businesses. They have templates. You can literally just copy exactly what they've done and implement it. I'm a big fan of WordPress. That's all I use, all I work on, all I recommend most of our clients use. WordPress is a free software. You only have to pay for your hosting and your domain name, and most hosting providers will help you within one click install WordPress and get a site up and running. You have sites like Studio Press, where you can find these amazing templates and sort of plug and play, just follow their directions. So you could, if you are a small business and you don't have that $3,000 to spend on a professional designer developer, you can absolutely find free templates out there just to get started. Make sure your brand is first and foremost. Most of these templates out there can be customized with colors, and you can implement your own brand consistency through these templated themes and so forth.
Okay. Dre, let me hop over to you. What would you say that solopreneur can probably areas of design they can probably cut costs on versus areas of design where they really should probably sit down with a professional designer?
Well, for me, I'm going to take a little bit of a cop out and say that's different for everybody, right? I know DIYers that I've spent 3 hours with and watched them rock and roll. I've spent 5 hours with another DIYer who just doesn't get it. It's just not there. So it depends, what your strengths are, and it depends how much time you're willing to put into it. One thing I will say for solopreneurs is get your hustle on. If you really want to make this work, we all started here, and there's all of us have aspects of the business that we didn't know, and you got to learn. That's what Google's for. Two, we all need a support system. Get a support system. Get into groups, private groups, and that sort of stuff. You would be amazed how many people are willing to do trades, how many people are willing to share their expertise for your expertise, how many people, there are so many new up-and-coming designers that need to build their portfolio. Like, go hustle, go out to the colleges, go get in groups, ask people. Like, there's a million ways to get things done, and that goes back to, again, creativity. Like, be creative. How do you need to get it done? If you need to create an image for your website header, okay, where do you start? Like Dustin said, do you need a stock photo? Okay, go find that. Do you need to figure out what your typography is? Go look for some inspiration. Like, do you need tips? Go ask in communities. We're solos, but it doesn't mean that we have to roll solo. You need people behind you. You need to spread your wings. You need to get out there, and that's how you're going to get shit done, and that's how you're going to learn.
And quite honestly, your strongest point in any sort of business venture is your ability to network and make connections with others. And so being able to make connections in ways that not only build your business but allow you to trade expertise is just another example of why networking is so critical in any of this sort of small business professions in general.
Yeah, I mean, look at how many of the circles, right, that we're all seeing now, right? Kind of the little cliques that, people came together. Most of the time, the correlation is how they came up. Like, whether it was that they met on the one platform. I mean, all of us know each other because of Google+, right? That's the one thing we have common. We all kind of started at the same time. We're in different directions, but that's exactly it. So who are those people for you? It can be, within your niche. It can be the fact that you're all starting together. That's what's so great about groups, is you're going to have people that are going to focus on social media, people on writing, people on mental health, people on this, that, and the other, and you're all starting, but you have the expertise. So when you band together, that's really the power, and that's why I said everything, again, boils down to relationship building. If you have that, you have so much behind you that's going to help you chug along every step of the way.
Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna take your answer, and I'm gonna ask you a follow-up question, Dre, because you said it depends a lot on the individual person. So how would an individual person then go about figuring out where they need to hire, like figuring that out for themselves? This is probably an area we need to hire somebody, this is probably not, if it varies that much between individuals.
Okay, so if let's just use an example, and let's say you're a new blogger and you're focusing on writing. Okay, so to write a 100-page ebook would take you six days, right? And you can sell that ebook for $30. Or you can spend that 6 hours not getting shit done with your design, and you don't have a book to sell for $40. I mean, it's balancing out what is your time best spent doing. If after 6, 10 hours you can't create an image template that you're happy with, that you feel like conveys the brand, that looks really aesthetically pleasing, that you're proud of, it's time to hire someone. Mm-hmm. And that, like I said, can come in different levels. When you're getting started, certainly you can use things like Fiverr and Canva and all that stuff and get away with it. That's great. They're going to help you do that. Like I said, it's always an evolution. So then when you have another $100 to spend, get someone to create you a template. Or if you have another $1,000, get someone to do a small branding package for you. Work up to it. Nobody needs to have all these bells and whistles done before they can do anything else. Like I said, you can be off writing your ebook while you have someone designing your, quick and dirty website, 3-page, a homepage, an about page, and a blog page. you know, $500, $1,000, really quick. No, it's not going to be something that Dustin or I do for $5,000, but it's going to work, and it's real estate, and it's going to take traffic, and it's going to teach people what you have to teach them. So, you know, go with what's going to hold you back the least, right? So is the blog image going to be a deal breaker for you to be able to sell this $30 ebook? Okay, if it is, then invest. Then hire someone, get that thing done so that you can go sell your ebook. I mean, put things in the order that they need to happen of importance, right? They always talk about the whole task A, B, and C, right? So task A has huge consequences, has to be done. Tasks B are like, okay, they'll be good to be done, but it's not going to hurt any of my clients or anything like that. C are just like, I'd like to have them done. You know, put your design and branding in that order. Some things can wait. Some things can be done a little bit now and expanded on and polished up by a designer. I have a lot of clients that do that. I just do refreshes for them. I get things tightened up and polished up and looking better. There's always room to do that. So that's what I mean by based on where you are in your business, where you're trying to go, where you're trying to launch. All those things are a factor.
Yeah. So to summarize, if I understand correctly, figure out where your expertise is, figure out where your time is going, and figure out where your greatest value is, whether that's investing your time or investing your money, and then do accordingly.
Right. Quickest route to your goal, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Quickest route. What are the pieces that you cannot live without, and what are the options on how you can get those?
Gotcha. Okay. So I know we're drawing close to the end of time, and I want to give you guys an opportunity in just a moment to let us know where we can all connect with you. But first, I'm going to ask, and I come back to you, Dustin. Dustin, if you could give your number one tip to new bloggers, solopreneurs, or small business owners when it comes to design and it comes to launching a business, what would your number one piece of advice be?
Communicate a message, not several messages, not a bunch of mixed messages. Communicate a message. That's the point of any visual design, any photograph, any type, any lower third graphic. It's there to communicate a message. Tie that message into in any visual way you can, but focus in on the message itself, not on does it look pretty or not.
Mm-hmm. And make sure that the message reinforces what you're actually trying to do with your business. I see a lot of people that have a business that is doing selling accounting services, and they have a blog post, and they tend to have a blog built around something completely unrelated to accounting that just doesn't target into that audience. So making sure that the message that you're doing actually reinforces what you're trying to accomplish as well. Yeah? Awesome. Dre, if you had your number one piece of advice for new business owners, solopreneurs, or bloggers, what would that be?
Know exactly who you are, like inside and out, and what your brand's about. Like, know every aspect. Be ready to be you. Be ready to infuse you in everything you do. Get comfortable in your skin. Get comfortable with who you are and owning every facet, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and don't let anybody else change that. Like, steadfast in who you are and celebrate it.
Awesome. So if I could bring all this entire conversation down to synthesize that to a sentence or two, I think it would be know who you are, communicate and know who you are, and knowing who you are, communicate a message, and make sure that the design elements that you make use of reinforce the message and identity that you're trying to communicate. Would you both agree with that?
Bang on.
Nailed it.
Awesome. All right, Dustin, tell us where we can find you at.
Of course, you can always find me on Dustin.tv. That's DUSTN.tv. That's my personal blog, and of course, the wheelmedia.com is where I'm working these days.
Awesome. Dre, where can we find you?
Over at my piece of the real estate, thebrandedsolopreneur.com. And if you want to grab the quick and dirty guide to branding for solopreneurs, it's thebrandedsolopreneur.com/branding. badass, of course.
And that is a great resource. I have that on my own computer as
Great.
well. So I do recommend that. If you haven't already grabbed that, make sure you pop over there and get hold of that. Connect up with Dre and with Dustin here on Google Plus and on their sites. They're great people to connect with. In fact, you guys probably don't know this, but I was following Dustin probably Dustin, a year, maybe a year and a half before I ever came to a point where I launched BlogPhoto.tv. Is that about right?
Sounds about right, yeah.
Something like that. And I was actually, it was Dustin and a lot of the stuff that he was teaching that helped me revitalize my ministry site, which became one of the top 150 most read ministry sites in the world. And a big part of that was refining that message. And so be sure you connect up with him. Be sure you connect up with Dre.
Winning.
I'm Thomas. Go ahead.
Winning.
And be sure to connect up with me. I'm Thomas C. Hanning. You can find me right here on Google+. You can also find me at my website, which is BlogPhoto.tv. If you are on the insiders list, in about half an hour, there's going to be an email going out that has this week's batch of photos in them, which are going to be exciting. We had a Viking shoot this past week. Those are all going to be in there. And if you are not on the insiders list, you can join that list super easy. Go to blogphoto.tv/insiders, and it should be all right there. You can just sign up, and you'll be getting that in your inbox in about half an hour. Thank you all for joining us here. Again, thank you, Dustin. Thank you, Dre. Fantastic conversation, and I look forward to seeing all of you folks next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.